We've had Ed O'Neill on this show,
Eddie.
sitting in that seat.
I know that my mom said to him on day one, look, Christina's not very good at comedy. Will you help her?
I'm so pleased that I've had this group of people for 20 plus years. That people don't do that.
Many fans of Married with Children remember the sharp humor and unforgettable chemistry between Christina Applegate and Ed O'Neill. But few expected what would happen after their recent reunion. What seemed like a warm, nostalgic moment quickly took a surprising turn. Behind the laughter, new claims began to surface, hinting at untold tensions and hidden truths from their time on set. But why is Christina speaking out now? And what secrets about Ed could change how fans see their iconic partnership forever? Ed O'Neill's quiet protection. When Christina Applegate first stepped onto the set of Married with Children in 1987, she was just 15 years old, a teenager walking into a world she could barely have been prepared for. The show itself was unlike anything television audiences had seen before. It was bold, rebellious, and often shocking, filled with humor that pushed boundaries and challenged what was considered acceptable at the time. And right at the center of that storm stood a young girl still figuring out who she was. But she wasn't alone for long. Standing quietly beside her was Ed O'Neill, a man who, to the audience, was simply the grumpy and hilarious Al Bundy, but behind the scenes became something far more important. He didn't just act alongside Christina. He watched over her, he guided her, and in many ways, he became the steady, protective presence she didn't even know she needed. At the time, Ed was already in his early 40s. He had lived through the unpredictable highs and crushing lows of Hollywood. He understood the pressure, the temptations, and the dangers that came with sudden fame, especially for someone as young as Christina, because while she was playing Kelly Bundy, a character written to be attractive, naive, and often the center of suggestive jokes, Christina herself was still just a teenager growing up in a very adult environment. The lines between acting and reality could have easily blurred. The scripts were daring, the costumes were revealing. The attention from fans, media, and even people on set could sometimes drift into uncomfortable territory. It was the kind of situation where things could have gone wrong in ways no one would want to imagine. But Ed made a quiet decision early on. He would not let that happen. In moments most people never saw, Ed became Christina's shield. If conversations on set turned too mature or inappropriate, he would gently but firmly step in and redirect them. If a scene or situation began to feel uncomfortable, he made sure she was not left to handle it alone. He created an invisible boundary around her, one that allowed her to grow as an actress without losing her sense of safety. He wasn't asked to do this. No contract required it. No director instructed it. He simply chose to care. As the years passed, Christina spent over a decade on that set. 11 years that would take her from a 15-year-old girl to a 26-year-old woman. These were not just any years. They were the years that shape identity, confidence, and self-worth. And through it all, Ed remained a constant presence, steady, watchful, and quietly supportive. Crew members noticed it. They saw the small, meaningful moments. The way Ed would pull her aside between takes just to check if she was okay. The way he positioned himself nearby during difficult scenes. The way he could shift the tone of an entire conversation with just a few words if it started heading in the wrong direction. What they were witnessing wasn't part of the script. It was real. There were even more powerful moments that never made it beyond the studio walls. Late at night, after long and exhausting shoots, Ed would sometimes drive Christina home himself, simply because he didn't want her traveling alone. He would call her mother, offering reassurance that her daughter was safe and being looked after. And when necessary, he wasn't afraid to stand his ground, even challenging producers if they pushed for scenes or ideas that made Christina uneasy. That kind of protection is rare. That kind of loyalty is even rarer. But what makes their story truly remarkable is how it didn't stay the same. In the beginning, it was clearly a mentor guiding a young talent. Ed had the experience. Christina had the potential. But as time moved on, something beautiful happened. Christina grew into her own power. She became more confident, more expressive, and more certain of her place in the world. And Ed saw it all. He watched with pride as the young girl he had once protected transformed into a strong, fearless performer. By the final seasons of the show, Christina was no longer just learning, she was leading. She brought ideas, energy, and creativity that surprised even the most experienced people on set. She wasn't standing behind Ed anymore. She was standing beside him, and he couldn't have been prouder. Now, decades later, Christina has begun to open up about those years, finally sharing just how deep that bond truly was. What seemed on the surface like a simple co-star relationship was, in reality, something far more meaningful. A connection built on trust, respect, and genuine care. Why was there boycott? Was there an internal conflict? Let's find out. The boycott that nearly destroyed everything. In the year 1989, a shocking moment unfolded that nearly brought the hit sitcom Married with Children to a sudden and dramatic end. A woman named Terry Rakolta, living in Michigan, happened to watch an episode titled "Her Cups Runneth Over." She was deeply offended by what she saw. To her, the show crossed a line that should never have been crossed on television. But instead of simply changing the channel and moving on, she decided to take action. Big action. She launched a full boycott campaign against the show, determined to have it taken off the air completely. She wrote countless letters to television networks and sponsors. She reached out to major companies that advertised during the show, urging them to pull their support. She even appeared on news programs, speaking passionately about why she believed the show was inappropriate and needed to be canceled. And, surprisingly, her efforts worked, at least in the beginning. Major companies like Coca-Cola and McDonald's quickly withdrew their advertisements from the show. Soon, many other big-name advertisers followed. One after another, they stepped away, not wanting to be associated with the growing controversy. Inside the network, panic began to spread. Executives held urgent meetings, trying to figure out what to do next. The pressure was intense, and the future of the show suddenly looked very uncertain. There were serious discussions about canceling it immediately, before things got even worse. For Christina Applegate, this moment was deeply frightening. She was only 17 years old at the time, a teenager still finding her place in the world. This show was not just a job for her, it was her entire career, her big break, and the dream she had worked so hard to achieve. And now, it seemed like everything could disappear overnight, all because one viewer strongly disagreed with what she saw. The fear and uncertainty were overwhelming. For someone so young, it felt like the ground beneath her feet was suddenly shaking. But in the middle of all that chaos, one person remained calm and steady: Ed O'Neill. While others were panicking, Ed refused to let fear take control. Behind the scenes, he quietly stepped into a role that went far beyond acting. He became a source of strength and reassurance for the younger cast members. He sat down with Christina and David Faustino, who played her on-screen brother Bud, and spoke to them with honesty and calm confidence. He told them that no matter what happened to the show, they had already created something meaningful and unique. He explained that success is not only measured by how long something lasts, but by the impact it leaves behind. Whether the show survived or ended, they should be proud of what they had built together. But Ed did not stop there. In a move that many people rarely talk about, he also stepped forward publicly. He began giving interviews to the press, defending the show, and, more importantly, defending the young actors who were part of it. He made sure that whenever the controversy was discussed, someone was there to speak up for them. He refused to let them become easy targets in a growing cultural debate. Then, something unexpected happened. Something almost unbelievable. The boycott, which was meant to destroy the show, ended up doing the exact opposite. All the negative attention sparked curiosity. People who had never watched the show before suddenly wanted to see what all the fuss was about. As a result, the show's ratings did not fall. They soared. More and more viewers tuned in, and the audience grew larger than ever. What was meant to be the end of Married with Children became one of the biggest boosts it had ever received. It was a perfect example of irony. An attempt to silence the show only made its voice louder. But years later, When Christina looked back on that intense and emotional time, she did not focus on the ratings or the unexpected success. What stayed with her most was something far more personal. She remembered how Ed stood by her side when everything felt like it was falling apart. She remembered his calm presence when others were overwhelmed with fear. Most importantly, she remembered how he showed her what it truly means to face a crisis with patience, dignity, and strength. As time went on, the cast began to wear the boycott almost like a badge of honor. They joked about it on set and spoke about it proudly in interviews. What had once been meant to shame them had instead brought them closer together. Were they able to reunite? Would they be able to keep things moving like it was? Let's find out. The reunion that almost never was. When Married with Children came to an end in 1997, it didn't go out with the kind of farewell anyone could have imagined. There was no sweeping finale filled with emotional speeches. There was no carefully crafted goodbye episode to wrap up the lives of the Bundy family. There was no sense of closure, no final curtain for the characters, and no proper farewell for the actors who had poured over a decade of their lives into the show. One day, the cast was filming new episodes, as if everything would continue forever. The next day, the cameras stopped rolling, the sets were dismantled, and just like that, it was over. For 11 years, Ed O'Neill and Christina Applegate had shared an almost daily life on set. They had celebrated birthdays together, laughed over inside jokes, and witnessed each other's transformations from youth into adulthood. Together, they had created hundreds of episodes that not only entertained millions, but also left a lasting mark on the landscape of television comedy. And yet, in an instant, it vanished. Christina has spoken about how surreal that period felt. One day, you are surrounded by a close-knit group of people who feel more like family than colleagues. You have routines, familiar hallways, and faces that know you better than almost anyone else in the world. And the very next day, it's all gone. The set disappears, the crew moves on, the cast goes their separate ways, and the family you grew up with scatters like leaves in the wind. The ending created a void none of them were prepared for. They had been part of something extraordinary, something that shifted television forever. And now, it was gone without ceremony. There were no applause-filled celebrations, no acknowledgement of what they had achieved. Hollywood simply moved on. But Christina has revealed that even after the show's sudden end, her bond with Ed O'Neill did not dissolve. They stayed in touch, called each other regularly, met for meals, and continued to offer support and advice. The on-screen father-daughter relationship had blossomed into a genuine connection, one that endured far beyond the cameras. Christina went on to carve out an impressive career. She shone in films like The Sweetest Thing and Anchorman, and captivated audiences in television shows such as Samantha Who and Dead to Me. Awards and critical acclaim followed her work, but through it all, Ed remained a steady presence, quietly proud of the young woman she had become. His pride wasn't about taking credit. It was the kind of pride a father feels when watching his child grow into their own remarkable person. Ed himself achieved new heights after the Bundys. He became a beloved figure on Modern Family, winning multiple awards and reaching levels of fame beyond even his days as Al Bundy. Yet, in interviews, when asked to recount career highlights, he often spoke about Christina. More than any role, he cherished witnessing her journey from a teenage actress to a powerful, confident performer. Despite the enduring success of both actors, the abrupt and unresolved ending of Married with Children lingered in their minds. Over the years, there were countless talks of a reunion. Fans petitioned, networks expressed interest, and interviewers pressed the topic. But for one reason or another, it never came together. For a long time, people assumed a reunion was only a matter of scheduling, that the stars would eventually align, and the Bundy family would return to the screen. However, something unexpected happened, something that complicated everything and made a traditional reunion almost impossible. So, what happened? Is about her health? Let's find out. Christina Applegate's MS diagnosis. On August 10, 2021, Christina Applegate shared a message on social media that instantly captured the world's attention. In a moment that felt both shocking and profoundly personal, she revealed that she had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. This news came as a surprise not only to her fans, but also to anyone who had followed her career. The disease had actually been discovered several months earlier, during the filming of the final season of her hit Netflix series, Dead to Me. In an instant, the life Christina had known, the rhythm of her days, and her sense of physical independence shifted dramatically. Nothing could ever go back to the way it had been. Multiple sclerosis, often shortened to MS, is a chronic disease that attacks the central nervous system, which includes the brain and the spinal cord. It is a condition that affects every aspect of a person's life, from mobility and balance to vision and even mental sharpness. Symptoms can range from mild to severe and can appear unpredictably. Unfortunately, there is no cure for MS. While treatments can help manage symptoms, slow the progression of the disease, and improve quality of life, the condition remains lifelong. For Christina, this diagnosis meant that her entire world had to be rebuilt from scratch. Daily routines that she had once taken for granted became new challenges she had to navigate. She began using a cane to walk, an adjustment that symbolized the very real changes happening to her body. The actress has spoken openly about her experiences with cognitive fog, a symptom that can make thinking clearly, remembering details, or completing simple tasks unexpectedly difficult. She has had to accept, with a mixture of sorrow and resilience, that her body had changed in ways she had never imagined. Christina Applegate, once celebrated as one of the most desirable and energetic teenagers on television, now faced the struggle of managing movements that most people handle effortlessly every day. Each new morning brought fresh obstacles, physical limitations, and a reminder that life as she knew it was no longer possible. Yet the impact of her diagnosis extended far beyond the physical. The emotional toll of MS has been immense. Christina has been candid about the grief she felt, a grief not only for what she had lost, but for the life she had envisioned for herself. She mourned the future she had planned, full of possibilities, and the version of herself that existed before MS became a part of her reality. Living while grieving, Christina has explained, is an especially difficult experience. It requires adjusting to a present that is suddenly unpredictable while still holding on to hope for the days ahead. Amid this emotional and physical upheaval, one bright spot emerged in the form of unwavering support from the people who mattered most to her. Christina shared how her former Married with Children co-star, Ed O'Neill, responded to her news. His reaction was immediate, heartfelt, and deeply personal. He did not simply send a short message or make a brief phone call. Instead, Ed made it clear that he was fully present for her. He reached out in ways that went far beyond typical interactions between former colleagues, offering genuine love, support, and reassurance. The rest of the Married with Children cast rallied as well. Katie Sagal, who played Christina's on-screen mother, Peggy Bundy, has been particularly vocal about her support, offering both public messages and private encouragement. David Faustino, the actor behind Bud Bundy, shared messages of love and solidarity, while Amanda Burse, who played the Bundy family's neighbor Marcy, also expressed her heartfelt support. Still, it was Ed's response that resonated most deeply with Christina. He continued to act as a protector in her life, even decades after they had first worked together. His care was a reminder that some bonds, forged in the intense environment of a hit television show, remain strong and enduring. Christina has spoken openly about the wide range of emotions MS has brought into her life. She has discussed grief, frustration, and anger at the limitations imposed by her condition, as well as the heartbreak of losing the life she had expected to lead. Through all these conversations, she consistently emphasizes the importance of having loved ones who truly understand her, people who see beyond the celebrity, beyond the roles she has played, to the human being experiencing a major life shift. The diagnosis also prompted questions about the possibility of a Married with Children reunion. A traditional production would demand long hours, physical activity, and energy that Christina could not provide at the moment. For fans longing to see the Bundy family back on screen, it seemed like that dream might be impossible. Yet the cast made it clear that any reunion would revolve around Christina's needs. They refused to consider replacing her or proceeding without her participation. The Bundy family would never be complete without Kelly. This promise of inclusion gave Christina a crucial lifeline during one of the darkest chapters of her life. How did she, an inspiring return? What encouraged her? Let's take a closer look. Christina Applegate's inspiring comeback. In November 2022, Christina Applegate made a remarkable return to the public eye, marking her first major appearance since she revealed her diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. She was being honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a moment that should have been purely celebratory, but for Christina, carried a deeper significance. Living with a chronic illness that affects energy and movement, simply showing up for this event demanded an extraordinary amount of bravery. Many people in her situation might have chosen to stay at home, but Christina refused to hide. She arrived with the help of a cane, moving more slowly than she once could. Yet her presence radiated strength. She was surrounded by love, encouragement, and admiration. The crowd that had gathered was immense. Fans had traveled from far and wide to witness this unforgettable moment. Among those there to show support was Katie Sagal, standing proudly beside her TV daughter, along with countless friends and colleagues who had come to celebrate both Christina's career and her courage in facing her illness so openly. From the very start, the ceremony was charged with emotion, but it was Christina's speech that truly moved everyone. She spoke openly about her diagnosis, the fear and uncertainty that followed, and the immense value of having people in her life who showed up when times were hard. She reflected on her early career, her time on Married with Children, and the many people who had helped shape her into the person she had become. Her voice trembled with emotion, yet she pressed on, never faltering, sharing her story with honesty and heart. Just 2 months later, another unforgettable moment arrived. In January 2023, Christina walked onto the stage at the Emmy Awards, again with her cane. What happened next stunned everyone. The entire audience rose to their feet in a spontaneous, overwhelming standing ovation. Every single person in the room applauded, and the cheering continued for nearly a full minute, a lifetime in television terms. Christina stood there, visibly emotional, as wave after wave of support washed over her. True to her spirit, she met the overwhelming emotion with humor. As the applause shook the room, she joked that the cheering was shaking her brain. Laughter mixed with tears, and Christina managed to be both heart-wrenching and hilarious at the same time, a perfect reflection of who she is. What viewers at home didn't see was what happened after the cameras stopped rolling. That night reaffirmed Christina's deep connections to the entertainment world. Colleagues she had worked with decades ago came by to greet her, old friends reached out, and former castmates checked in. The love and support were overwhelming. Among those showing his care was Ed O'Neill, who had been a protective figure since Christina was 15. Their private exchanges that evening reflected the same bond that had existed for decades. He was still looking out for her, still making sure she was okay. The TV father was still being a real father. These public appearances sent a powerful message. Despite the challenges she faced, Christina Applegate was not going to disappear. She would confront her illness openly, use her platform to raise awareness about multiple sclerosis, and do so while keeping the warmth, humor, and charm that had made audiences fall in love with her over the years. But are there hidden stories about Married with Children they never told anyone? Or is there something more shocking? Let's find out. The untold stories of Married with Children. One of the most fascinating stories from the set of Married with Children revolves around the legendary improvisation that happened during filming. Unlike many sitcoms of the time, which were tightly scripted and followed a strict plan, Married with Children offered its cast an unusual amount of creative freedom. Writers would provide the lines, of course, but the actors were encouraged to experiment, to try things differently, to play with the timing, the delivery, even the words themselves. This approach created a kind of playground for creativity, where unexpected sparks of humor could happen naturally. And it was within this environment that some of the show's most unforgettable and iconic moments were born. At the heart of this improvisational magic was Ed O'Neill, the actor who brought Al Bundy to life. Ed had a deep background in theater, and that training gave him a unique set of tools. He could think quickly on his feet, adapt to whatever was happening in the moment, and find humor in the tiniest of unexpected places. But Ed didn't just use his skills to make the audience laugh. He also used them to mentor and guide the younger cast members. He became, in many ways, both a teacher and a protector on set. Christina Applegate has spoken openly about how Ed helped her learn the art of spontaneity in front of the camera. During scenes, he would throw her curveballs, lines delivered in unpredictable ways or sudden changes in tone, forcing her to respond naturally, without a script to rely on. He wasn't trying to make her stumble or look bad. Instead, he was teaching her how to react authentically, how to be flexible, and how to trust her instincts as an actress. These lessons went far beyond the immediate scene. They were shaping her future, honing her craft in ways that only a seasoned mentor could. Another aspect of life on the set that often goes unnoticed was how the cast and crew handled the more controversial elements of the show. Married with Children was groundbreaking for its time, pushing boundaries in humor, social commentary, and family dynamics. While this made it fresh and daring on television, it also meant that the cast was sometimes navigating tricky territory, especially the younger actors who might not fully understand the implications of the jokes or situations. Ed O'Neill played a crucial role in keeping the set a safe and respectful place. He made it clear that while the characters could behave badly, the actors themselves deserved dignity and respect. Inappropriate comments or behavior were shut down immediately, and this standard set the tone for everyone involved in the production. It was a form of quiet leadership that ensured the show could be edgy without ever becoming unsafe for the people creating it. The humor of Married with Children also evolved in a fascinating, organic way, often influenced by the chemistry between the actors, rather than just what was written on the page. Many of the running jokes that became so memorable actually developed naturally over time. Al Bundy's endless obsession with his high school football glory, particularly the game where he scored 4 touchdowns, was not just a scripted punchline. It grew out of Ed's performance and the way the cast played off him. Peggy Bundy's absolute refusal to cook or clean became more and more exaggerated each season, shaped by Katie Saigel's comedic timing and instincts. Kelly's legendary not-so-smart moments, which the audience loved to laugh at, grew increasingly creative as Christina Applegate found new ways to make each joke feel fresh. These moments weren't always planned from the start. They emerged from a mix of timing, chemistry, and the playful spirit that the cast nurtured on set. Beyond the jokes and improvisation, there were quieter, more tender moments between the actors that fans never got to see. Christina remembers Ed bringing her coffee when she was tired, showing small but meaningful gestures of care. She recalls Katey Sagal giving her advice about navigating Hollywood as a young woman, offering wisdom that extended far beyond the script. And she remembers David Faustino, who played her brother, sharing in the experience of growing up both on screen and off, forming a bond that felt very much like real siblinghood. These small acts of kindness and mentorship added depth to the off-screen relationships and, in turn, enriched the performances that audiences saw. The show ran for an impressive 11 seasons, an extraordinary achievement for any television series. This longevity was not just the result of clever writing or bold concepts. It was the genuine connection between the performers that made it possible. The actors were more than colleagues. They had become a kind of family. That real-life connection translated into the performances, giving the Bundys a sense of authenticity and chemistry that no script alone could provide. What viewers saw on screen, the laughter, the arguments, the tender moments, was a reflection of the trust and affection that had developed off-screen. These behind-the-scenes stories, the improvisation, the mentorship, the care taken to maintain respect on set, and the organic development of running jokes all paint a picture of a production that was extraordinary in ways audiences might never fully understand. The relationships formed during those years didn't fade with the show's finale. They endured. They remain, even decades later, a testament to the magic that happens when talent, mentorship, and genuine human connection come together in a creative space. So, what are your thoughts on Christina Applegate's shocking revelation about Ed O'Neill after the reunion? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.